because when you're far away from your home and everything familiar, you have to draw on and build up your emotional and social reserves. So I would say that when people come to us, learning to be is quite a big component of what they learn. Exposure to other cultures is often an unspoken part of what we do, but it's very, very important. If you're going to continue working in an international community, then learning about the way people live in other parts of the world is a critical part of that. So in every group of about 20 fellows, we have about 14 or 15 different countries represented. And they learn about one another, but definitely about Iceland as well. Learning to do. At this point, I'd like to highlight that the United Nations University is not a typical university. We provide education and training, but beyond that, we provide a space for fellows to come to Iceland to work on a specific problem that relates to their work. That means that in addition to technical expertise, we work on developing skills in research and communication, and all of this is with the intention that when the fellows return home, they're able to apply what they learned while in Iceland to their jobs. A lot of times, people working in fisheries in developing countries have problems with data. We don't really know how many fish there are. Our surveys, the government has funding to do a survey this year, but maybe not next year. We don't actually have the expertise to know what to do with the data. I'll just point out that working with incomplete or sort of inconsistent data sets provides a challenge for a lot of our supervisors, but it's a challenge that shows us that not only do people come to Iceland to learn, but Icelanders learn quite a lot from the people who come. If your academic training is in a system where everything is neat and clean and provided for you on a silver platter every time, and then all of a sudden you're faced with a real challenge, what do you do with this kind of data? Then our supervisors in Iceland are pushed to think creatively in a way that usually their academic training doesn't. Slight side benefit. Learning to live together is the last pillar, or one of the last pillars. So the UNUFTP has existed since 1998, which is almost 20 years. I would say that over those 2 decades, we've come to learn that learning experiences, usually that are deep and transformative, don't usually happen between the regular student-teacher paradigm. Those are very useful, but deep learning that changes worldviews, changes approaches, changes values, and inspires dedication to a cause. Those things happen when the fellows learn from one another. We say it doesn't matter if the species that you're working with are different, if the culture is different, if the languages are different. We face a lot of the same challenges when it comes to managing resources. And we see that living together and learning together for the benefit of our communities is the path to lead to a more sustainable society. Finally, learning to change the world. So in addition to the 6-month program, we also do short courses in our partner countries. We have offered over 40 of these courses, training over 1,000 participants. So the way that the model typically works is a fellow will come to Iceland and study with us for 6 months. They'll work on a tangible research project that has to do with their work at home. Sometimes those projects can grow into case studies that we use to develop a short course in the country when the fellow returns home. Now, these are usually done in cooperation with universities or local training agencies, but the needs really depend on the partners on the ground. What are the problems that you're trying to solve? And then we custom make courses to deliver in country. We also offer support for former fellows to attend international conferences related to fisheries, and a scholarship program for further studies in Iceland, either at the master's or PhD level. So, to conclude, we might not be sure how to solve these wicked problems that face us. Climate change is a big one, and all of us are vulnerable. All of us who breathe air, all of us who, eat food, all of us who live here in the world are vulnerable. And we are all in this fight together. The one thing that we do know about this uncertain future is that we need passionate, dedicated, well-informed change agents on the ground to solve these problems. I'd like to highlight that education doesn't end, and it shouldn't. So you go to school, you read, you work hard, you get a paper, and then you put it on your wall, but then the real work starts. And that's where the UNU FTP comes in. How do you take what you've learned in school, what you've learned in your work, and use it to make real changes on the ground? Thank you.
I want to thank all these three great speakers here today. We have a few moments for questions if somebody wants to ask them. So can I ask you to sit up here so we can, so the audience can ask you any question that they may have on the topics. Okay, here's our little, okay. So do we have any questions from the audience to start with? I hope so, because they are ocean of knowledge, if we can put it that way. Okay, we have a question, great.
Thank you for the last presentation. The other two, I haven't really been here for them, so. But I'm going to just follow up on what you just said and ask you, dealing with biodiversity in Iceland and, how the ecosystem is adapting to melting, ice, etc. Do you emphasize only on fisheries, or do you emphasize on biodiversity management as well in your program? Thank you.
Does that work? Yeah. So there's different areas of focus that we offer in our program. All of them have some relation to fisheries. When experts come and study with us, we look at the needs that they have in their own work at home. So we offer one line of specialization on fisheries policy and management. We offer one on food safety, the more processing of fish and marketing of fish. We offer one on sustainable aquaculture and another on industry management. So usually civil servants who need to be able to look at policies to support fisheries businesses. Now when it comes to, and I forgot, stock assessment.